Welcome to Everyday French, or should I say bienvenue to Everyday French with CécileBB. Here I'm going to give you lots of tips about how to learn a foreign language, which will help you to accelerate your learning, giving you techniques to help you learn French in this case. We'll do a bit of myth busting and some top tip giving. First of all, a few questions. What is first? What do you want to learn? Obviously French, but textbook French? Conversational French? Or do you just want to be able to get by? Who do you want to be able to communicate with? Anyone at all? You just like talking? Or you just want to be able to book things like restaurants? Where do you want to speak French? In France? To your French partner? To your grandchildren who live in France? When do you want to do it? On holiday? Or as much as possible? How do you plan to do it? You're obviously thinking about classes, but in the past, have you tended to wing it? Have you ever had one-to-one lessons? Have you hoped to wave a magic wand and speak French in a day? Why do you want to speak French? To be polite when you're out there? To chat? Or perhaps it's to keep your brain stimulated? Or to have a hobby? Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Do you think anyone can learn a foreign language? Yes, if you've learnt one, why not another? Unless there's some kind of brain damage or something like that, there is no reason why not. Some people do learn faster, but language learning is not a race. The biggest thing is not to compare yourself to others. Think effort rather than speed. How long do you think it takes to speak a foreign language? How long did it take you to speak your native tongue? Or maybe you speak more than one language. Some people have learnt a foreign language in 3 months from scratch, but that's with intensive practice every day. People who tend to be fast learners tend to have a good short-term memory, which is not me. I have to work a little bit harder at it. But you can train your short-term memory. There is hope if you have problems with this. However, you don't need to rush. A language takes as long as it takes. We still learn new English words as adults. Think of it as a marathon, not a sprint. There are around 250,000 words in the English language, but most of them we don't use. Average native speakers know around 20,000 words. Some clever clogs know about 87,000 words. The children around the age of 5 when they start school know around 5,000 words. That's orally. Even if you manage to learn 20,000 French words, you probably don't know how to use them correctly. And most of us are either too busy or even too lazy to learn that much. With 2,000 words, you could have a mature or more immature adult conversation. For more informal situations, informal means more colloquial. You can even get by with 400 words. So I say this to emphasise the point that you may have to lower your expectations of yourself. So unless you're aiming to write a PhD in French, just enjoy learning the language and learn to live with your mistakes. Starting with the heavy weights can hurt unless you've got a lot of support and time. So how many words do you know in French? I bet you know more than you think. Let's look at just a handful. Pain, bread. Amour, love. Oui, yes. Vin, wine. Think of vineyard. Lait, like café au lait, a coffee with milk in. Grand, it can either mean tall or big. Plage, the beach. Aéroport, airport. Pomme, apple. Gâteau, bet you know that one. Cake. Café, can mean coffee that you drink, or a cafe where you go and sit at a nice table outside in the sun, hopefully. Maison, house. Glace, ice cream. Rouge, peu de rouge, red. Merci, thank you. Petit, small. Fromage, cheese, of course. Do you know how to count to 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's just a handful. You may know an awful lot more than these words. So we're going to look at what experts do when they come to language learning. Let's get some top tips from them. Babies are the language learning experts. What can they teach us? Babies do a lot of listening long before they can say anything. They are surrounded by the language all the time. So you don't have to wait until you're good enough before you start listening to French. So many people say to me, I don't understand, they speak too quickly, it's too fast. Don't let that put you off. You listen to your native tongue from the minute you were born. It's really important to have that input as much as you possibly can. Babies try to pronounce things, even when it's difficult. They just keep trying. They may not be able to say certain words for a number of years, but eventually they do. And making foreign sounds can be very difficult. It just takes practice, just like it did when you were learning your own language. It can be a bit of a mouth gym in the beginning. Very importantly, babies don't mind getting things wrong. And by getting things wrong, by trying, you can get feedback from native speakers. They can help correct you. If you don't say anything, how are you going to make progress? And babies and toddlers don't have grammar lessons. They don't have language lessons. They work things out for themselves. They work out patterns, they make mistakes, and they keep trying until they get understood. So they may have realised in English, to say that you've done something in the past, you add ed on the end of the word. So they will say things like, I eated it already, or I sawed him. And it's actually really clever. It's just fascinating. And eventually, with time and correction, they will start getting those words right. Babies first learn the words that are important to them, and they repeat them again and again and again and again. So learn words that are important to you. What are your interests? Babies also learn the words that they hear over and over again, which is why you need to listen, because you will start to pick up those frequent, therefore useful words. Toddlers are very good at guessing and being happy with just getting the gist. They don't feel the need to understand every single last thing. When you read to them, sometimes the language is a bit over their heads. They just get the gist. They're happy with that. And this is what good language learners do. They get the gist, they have a good guess, they use their intuition, and the context will help a lot. You may get it wrong. It doesn't matter. Just have a go anyway. What can hold you back? Perfectionists. They want to speak perfect French before they even attempt it. A friend of my mother's went to Oxford to do French. She moved there when she was 40. She's 70-something now. She does translation work. She still makes mistakes. Learning to laugh at yourself and getting more comfortable with making mistakes will make you progress at a faster rate. You may be shy. And here, this is not easy, but it's about learning to feel uncomfortable. And like any skill, learning to feel uncomfortable takes practice. Not pleasant, but once you've done it, it's such an achievement. People are very severe on themselves. If people came to my class and I was horrible to them, they wouldn't come back. So please, go easy on yourself. Give yourself a break. Language learning is hard. You might not have a lot of time. I have people who come for an hour a week. So really, once we've done 24 lessons, they've only done a day of French. And they expect to be better than they are. You need to be realistic and you need to be nice to yourself. Stop telling yourself off. Time. We never have time. There will never be time. So even if you do 10 minutes, hopefully you can find 10 minutes. And that should stop you feeling too overwhelmed. Every little bit counts. As I said, all of this is easier said than done, but it can be achieved with practice. You may make a lot of false starts, but start again. Start again. You can do it. By lowering your expectations, you will get more enjoyment. Be happy with partial understanding. Make informed guesses from the context. Expose yourself to as much French as you possibly can to get those high frequency words, even if you cannot get any of it in the beginning. Learning a language as an adult is difficult because we don't have that 24-hour exposure like children. You probably don't have a teacher, i.e. family, helping you with the language every single day. But adults do have an advantage over 2-year-olds. They can follow a few grammatical rules. Remember, slowly, slowly catch a monkey. Perhaps you need to use gentle weights, unless you have the time, the energy and the support to use the heavy ones. What can you do to improve your chances? I might have mentioned this, but listen to the language, listen to French. You have radio, you have films, you have music. You need to get attuned to the sound and the rhythm. Your brain will pick it up all by itself. And once you get a bit better, start reading about the things that interest you. Look online. If you use Facebook, type in your hobby on a Facebook page. For example, if you like football, what are people saying about football? What words do you keep seeing popping up? Read French. Listen to interviews. This is more spoken language and very useful. Watch dodgy soap operas, kids' cartoons, they're nice and short, or documentaries that interest you. Sometimes you can get subtitles. Stick post-its around the house with vocab and expressions that you want to learn. Speak to yourself in French, even if at the beginning it's just single words. And then talk about what you are doing. Give yourself a running commentary. And rehearsing at home. You could read from a book. If you are shy, a good technique is to speak to yourself in the mirror, because it's as if you are talking to another face. It will get you used to. You may be very uncomfortable talking to yourself, but the more you do it, the less uncomfortable you will be. It's a really good technique. Recall techniques. For example, get a simple text, pick a couple of words. Can you say it without looking? Keep adding a word until you can say a whole sentence in French without looking. This is training your short-term memory, which in turn will make you a better language learner. If your goal is to get really good, then you can learn the 2,000 to 4,000 most frequently used words. And then after this, it's good to focus on the frequent words in your areas of interest. So if you are fascinated by sport, by music, by knitting, by synchronized swimming, whatever, learn 30 words around that subject, and at least you will be motivated and you'll be able to talk about the things that interest you. If your goal is to have conversational French, you will need to learn expressions and some slang, because the way we write in formal situations and the way we speak in everyday life are extremely different. Not only will extensive reading and listening expose you to the high frequency words, it will introduce you to the low frequency words and to common collocations. Collocations can be expressions, word order, words that are placed in a certain order, idiosyncrasies in the language. These take a while to learn. We're going to talk about collocations in a minute. And don't assume because you've learnt something, then that's it. You have to come back to it. You weren't told a word once in your native tongue and then remember it forever. You heard it many times. You need to go over things again. I keep saying it, but it's important. By exposing yourself to plenty of material, the important words will crop up again and again. How do people get better at playing chess? They play chess. How do people get better at cooking? They cook. How do people get better at playing the guitar? They play the guitar. And how do people get better at playing tennis? They play tennis. You can read about it, you can get an instructor, but if you don't practice, you will not make progress. So funnily enough, the way to get better at speaking French is to speak French. As terrifying as that is, there will be some dodgy moves, some disgusting dishes, some really false notes at first. But don't give up as soon as it gets difficult. You would never discourage a child from learning to speak or learning to walk. They have to keep going. In short, repetition. So that's what you can do to help with your language learning. But what about the teacher? What's my role in this? My role is to keep you motivated. My role is to inspire you, to save time by showing you the shortcuts, and to keep you accountable. This is really important. Otherwise, we wouldn't need to go to school. We could learn from books. We wouldn't need to go to the gym. We could just do exercise on our own time. Being accountable helps your progress. I will help you to learn the grammar, the boring bit, because even if you just want to speak conversational French, you can't get away from it, unfortunately. If you've always hated grammar, perhaps you find it difficult, fear no more. I shall help you and we will have fun learning the terrible grammar. And we are going to learn a lot of collocations. Collocations will transform your foreign language progress. But what on earth is a collocation? Collocations are words that are frequently grouped together, words that go together automatically, and expressions or words that sound natural together, like Bob's your uncle, or as my French mother said, Bob's your oyster. We need to remember that languages have been around for a very long time, and they have evolved and they will continue to evolve. And of course, each language has meandered in its own way, which means that different languages express the same things in very different ways. Even in your native tongue, there are many quirky things. We tend not to notice them because they're so ingrained, because we've heard them so many times they feel natural and normal. And there are many ways of expressing the same thing. There's not just one way. Perfectionists might say, but how do you say this? You could say it this way, you could say it that way, you could say it like this. It often depends on the context. Correct language is wonderful if you're writing a French thesis, but not that useful if you just want to have a conversation. Do you speak the Queen's English? Do you use expressions? Bob is one's uncle. Do you use some slang? One is down with the kids. Do you use slang that you wouldn't necessarily use yourself? One is not bothered. Do you understand stronger language? Pardon your French! So back to collocations. We mentioned there were many ways of expressing similar concepts. For example, what's another way of saying it's your decision in English? You might say, it's up to you. That's just one way. What's another way of saying, please wait a moment? In English, you might say, hang on, hold on a second, hold on a minute. But what are you hanging on to? What are you holding on to? You don't think about this. It feels so normal to us to say this, but actually it's quite funny. Bear this in mind when you hear strange expressions in French. How else can you say go away or leave? You might say shoo if you're talking to a fly, and plenty of other stronger ways. Instead of saying there's something not right about this situation, you might hear, smells fishy to me. And they are just a few examples. You can play word association games with collocations. For example, what phrases can you come up with which use the word cause? I don't mean like because, I mean like in a phrase, in an expression. A good cause, it's a good cause. It's a cause for embarrassment. It's a cause for concern. In everyday language, we use a lot of expressions. What can you think of with the expression dog? There are loads. Dog tired, sick as a dog, to go to the dogs, hair of the dog, it's raining cats and dogs, top dog, let sleeping dogs lie, it's a dog's life, see a man about a dog, teach an old dog new tricks, tail wagging the dog like a dog in a butcher's shop, every dog has its day, dog eat dog, work like a dog, be in the doghouse, argue like cat and dog, she's a dog, that's not very nice, it's the dog's And again, there are many more. Some of those expressions are used in French, but most of them are not. They have different equivalents. So it can be very confusing sometimes, especially with the last one in our list. If you're in an English restaurant, order today's special. It's the collocations are words that go together naturally. What does that mean? We say strong tea, not powerful tea, even though powerful and strong are similar words. We say, I'm going to take a quick bath, not a fast bath or a rapid bath. We say, I'm going to grab a bite, not snatch a mouthful. We burst into tears. We don't explode into tears. We commit a crime. We don't undertake a crime. And this is common everyday language. And some collocations we say are grammatically incorrect. For example, I'm going to bed instead of going to the bed. You wouldn't say, I'm going to bathroom. We say go home, but not go to supermarket. Why do we? Because we do. We just do, because that is how the language has evolved. You need an open mind with language learning, because that's what happens with other languages. Sometimes it doesn't seem to make sense, but things don't make sense in our own languages. Languages are very quirky. Collocations include expressions. So an expression to refer to a child in French is haut comme trois pommes, as tall as 3 apples. We might say a whippersnapper, an ankle biter. Also, context is very important. Take the earlier example of go away. What would you say if you wanted to remain polite? What would you use with a fly? What would you use in a panic? What would you use to a friend in jest? What would you use if you were very angry? The words and the phrases we choose differ enormously depending on the context. As well as context, tone of voice is very important. For example, elle est bonne in French literally means she is good, or is she good? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything on its own. We need the context to understand it. If you heard this phrase on the beach, that is how French people say, is the water good? Is the sea good? Because it's la mer, it's feminine. Elle est bonne? If you were eating an ice cream, it means, is the ice cream good? If you were talking about a kind, thoughtful, helpful woman, you would mean she is a good person. It could even mean, is she good in bed? And elle est bonne could mean, ha, that was a good joke, or ha, that was a good story. Or if you say it sarcastically, it's like, yeah, very funny, really good. It all depends on the context. Unfortunately, you cannot always rely on direct translations. What can happen? Direct translations may result in success. You want to say good day, you say bonjour. Yay, it works. Sadly, this is infrequent. You might create some confusion. I'd like a full breakfast. If you translated it word for word, je voudrais un petit déjeuner plein. And they would think, full of what? If you want a full breakfast, you would say un petit déjeuner complet. But if you don't know how to say it, do use direct translations. You have a lot more fun when you try. Even when you get it wrong, people laugh if you can learn to laugh at yourself. And most people really, really appreciate the effort. You might even cause offence. For example, to say, are you full? Have you eaten enough? If you say, vous êtes pleine? In French, that means you're pregnant. But again, if you're offensive, they'll realise that you didn't mean it, that you just made a bit of a faux pas. Sometimes pronunciation will trip you up. For example, you have beautiful hair, vous avez de beaux cheveux. Not chevaux, because chevaux are horses. I'm going to help you with pronunciation. And again, it doesn't matter. Don't let that put you off saying hair or horses. You can still laugh about it if you get it wrong. Collocations expressions do not tend to translate very well. I've translated some here in French. Can you guess their meanings? It's equal to me is the direct translation in English of ça m'est égal. But what do you think it means? What's an English equivalent? It means I'm not bothered. It makes no difference to me. So do you want to go there or there? Ça m'est égal. It's not terrible is the direct translation of ce n'est pas terrible. Well, believe it or not, this actually means it's not very good. Strange, but true. I know. How weird. I have cold is the direct translation of j'ai froid. Well, it so happens that that means I am cold. And if you did say I am cold in French, it means that you are a cold person. It's talking about your personality. I have hot, j'ai chaud. So I have hot is j'ai chaud, which is how you say in French, I'm hot. If you try and say I'm hot using am in French, it can mean you're horny. So as I said, every language expresses concepts differently. So in English, to order soup, one way you may use is to say, I'll have the soup. But in French, they tend to say, I'll take the soup. Je prends la soupe. In English, when we're ordering an ice cream, somebody may ask you, what flavour? Well, in French, they will say, which perfume? Quel parfum? They're not asking you about perfume. That's just the word they use for flavours of ice cream. Like, I only came for ice cream, but Chanel at that price, I'll take the lot. In English, we would say, I am 45 years old. But in French, you have to say, I have 45 years. J'ai 45 ans. In English, if you want to say, how is he? In French, you have to say, how is he going? Comment va-t-il? Because in English, if you translate directly, how is he? Comment est-il? In French, that expresses what is he like as a person. He's a right grumpy so-and-so. There you go. There's an English collocation. So it's definitely worth taking the time to learn as many collocations as you can. And I will be helping you with this. That way you will have a much better understanding, you will sound more natural, and you will be able to eavesdrop on that couple on the table next door having an argument. What's not to like? This is the way we mere commoners talk. This is how we communicate. This is everyday language. But we have this problem with retention. How can we remember collocations? Get a handy notepad, old-fashioned style. Write them down as you hear them. Draw pictures. Pictures are extremely powerful. Plus, if you can't remember an expression, you can quickly find it with your little picture. Make cards. Make associations with the words. What does that French word remind you of in English? The sillier, the weirder, the ruder, the better. Use your imagination. It works wonders for the memory. You need to use your collocations. Just writing them down isn't enough. Just like in tennis, you need to practice the strokes. If you like using technology, there are some free spaced repetition programs out there. For example, Anki or Memrise. You put in your words, or people have already put in lists of words, and then it keeps bringing the ones that you get wrong. It's all based on how long the average person tends to forget things. Record yourself. For example, on your phone, you can use audio. You can video yourself talking. Speak to yourself in the shower, in the mirror. Act things out. Bring them to life. Use silly voices and props because they help you to remember. And of course, repetition is the key to anything, to any skill. I know I have repeated myself a lot, but these are really important and powerful techniques. So all of that was to say, expose yourself to the language, accept the differences. Practice speaking to yourself, practice speaking to others, accept to make mistakes. Be kind to yourself and very, very patient. Learn useful words, a bit of grammar and collocations first, and then look into those words in your areas of interest. Oh, and do your homework. I shall be giving you written summaries of everything we've done, so you don't need to take notes if you don't want to, so you can concentrate on the lesson. You can watch the videos again, and also you will get homework with the answers. This will help to consolidate the language. Just to finish off, the main errors that are made in foreign languages are grammatical errors. Maybe trouble with your accent, the cheveux, chevaux. But by far the biggest error is failure of communication. And by that I mean just not having a go. Merci beaucoup. Happy collocating.